Mrs. Vanilla Charles Alsey. Happy birthday to you, Vanilla, and we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday today. Also sending birthday greetings out to Janelle Edward. Happy birthday to you, and we're hoping that you're having a wonderful birthday celebration. Also to Miss Chanel Sifle. Happy birthday to you, Chanel, and we do hope that you're having a very special birthday as well. And for all those who are celebrating their birthdays today, there are some very interesting individuals who were born on this day, including British naval captain James Cook, who was the first Brit to get to Australia. And scientist and Nobel Prize winner Marie Curie was also born on this day, as well as the the Marxist revolutionary Leon Trotsky, and pastor preacher Billy Graham. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 1492 on this day, the Ennisheim meteorite struck a wheat field near the village of Ennisheim in Alsace, France. And that is in fact the oldest known meteorite with a definitive date of impact. In the year 1872 on this day, a cargo ship called the Mary Celeste sailed from Staten Island for Genoa, and it was mysteriously found abandoned 4 weeks later. In 1917, on this day during the October Revolution in Russia, Lenin and the Bolsheviks seized power, capturing the Winter Palace and as well overthrowing the provisional government in Russia. 1931, on this day, saw the Chinese People's Republic proclaimed by Mao Zedong. 2000, on this day, controversial U.S. presidential election between George W. Bush and Al Gore is left inconclusive, with the result later on being in Bush's favor, and the matter eventually resolved by the United States Supreme Court. And on this day in 2020, former Vice President Joe Biden was declared the winner of the U.S. presidential race 4 days after the U.S. election, defeating then sitting President Donald Trump, who of course is in court as we speak. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Joux Grizzly, and Slack Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, we haven't had a chance to catch up on some of the international happenings around the world, certainly over in the United Kingdom today. That country saw the state opening of their parliament, and of course the monarch is the one who normally would deliver that address, and so said, so done. His first speech from the throne delivered today at the Palace of Westminster, that of King Charles III, delivering his throne speech there. Now, of course, on to the Levant and the region we now know as Israel, Palestine, and the continuing warfare that is occurring there, being led by Israel against Hamas forces in the Gaza Strip. And, of course, since the attack by Hamas about 4 weeks now, the Israelis have engaged in a counter-offensive, which has involved significant airstrikes, missile strikes, significant destruction of buildings in the very dense city of Gaza, in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, indicating that they were going to head into Gaza and asked for the evacuation of well over 1 million people within a matter of days. And of course, they have kept to their word in terms of that ground offensive. And it has been ongoing now. And of course, a bit of irony in this entire matter is that you have a country or region of Israel, Palestine, split down the middle by way of its population. About 7.5 million Palestinians and 7.5 million Israelis exist in that region of Israel, Palestine. But the odds and certainly the condition and the welfare of those individuals is quite disparate. We have a situation where Israel is in fact, and Israelis are in fact, some of the wealthiest individuals in the world. Their GDP per capita certainly suggests that they are an advanced country, a very wealthy country, and far more so than their neighbors, be it, of course, Jordan or Egypt or Lebanon and Syria and even further afield with Iraq. But certainly as well, far, far better off than the Palestinians, who, of course, also claim that very same region. We have seen over the years the challenges of the Palestinian people from moving from the Nakba to having to flee their homeland at the establishment of that Jewish state back in 1948, having to find refuge in other regions, other countries within the Middle East. In fact, as far as Kuwait, significant population there at one point in time. Later on, ironically enough, themselves had to seek refuge outside of Kuwait because they were in fact blamed as being supporters of Iraq during the Gulf War. And so, of course, a number of them moved on to other parts. Jordan, similar situation, large number of refugees out of Palestine, and the same for Egypt. It's part of the challenge, however, with respect to what is going on, that a number of the neighboring Arab countries do not want to take in these additional refugees, and certainly the border that Gaza shares with Egypt has still been pretty closed, much closed, especially except for the really significant, truly, critical cases, humanitarian cases, individuals needing medical assistance. It has certainly been a difficult time in Gaza, as we've, of course, mentioned, with the continued destruction of that area, and the loss of life is well in excess of what we saw occurring by that Hamas attack. And so, of course, there have been many appeals from around the world, including from the United Nations and UN agencies, appealing for a ceasefire to allow for this, effectively the bloodshed that is going on right now, to end. It is right now somewhere about 10,000, over 10,000 people killed, over 25,000 wounded, and a significant number also missing. And I think we've got an interesting clip which we will share at this point, which is giving a bit of an update on the ongoing situation. Of course, as I mentioned, Israel has begun its ground offensive into Gaza.
Military have so far, since the ground offensive begun, struck 2,500 Hamas targets, which is clearly an extraordinary number if you think about it. How do you think they're actually progressing?
Yeah, good afternoon, Simon. I mean, away from the headline news about the humanitarian situation, the hostage situation, and the huge diplomatic efforts by Antony Blinken in the region, the IDF's main effort is clearly the ground offensive, and that's what's going on apace. They claim they've had, in the last 24 hours, close quarter fighting with Hamas fighters. They've also been continuing the bombing campaign, which, of course, has struck war depots, observation points, command posts, and they said overnight it also struck a Hamas military compound as well. And as you say, 2,500 Hamas targets. That's a hell of a lot of targets for a relatively small area. From a Hamas perspective, they clearly are no match for the armour of the Israeli Defence Force, particularly in this semi-urban environment. So they've been resorting to tactics of setting traps, IEDs, popping out of their tunnels with hit-and-run tactics, some video footage shown here. But they've also said that they're not really focused on defending the outskirts, particularly to the north of the city. And eventually they will be preparing for the next phase, which is when the IDF have to actually go into the city, which will very much more favour Hamas's defence.
OK, we're going to switch now and take a look at the other conflict, of course, going on in Europe, which is Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen's been visiting Kyiv. She's played.
And that giving you a sense there of some of the issues at play right now. As has just been mentioned, the approach of the Israeli Defense Forces has been to attack on all sides the city of Gaza, effectively a circumvallation of the epicenter of Hamas activity in Gaza, and thus far largely taking ground in the rural part of it, and of course then now the plan to move into the, of course, dense built-up area. And that, of course, is where significant challenges are afoot for the Israeli Defense Forces in terms of tackling what it would effectively become urban warfare. And not simply urban warfare, but also underground warfare, a significant network of underground tunnels and installations exist that have been built over the years by Hamas. No doubt for instances like this, for potential invasions like this. And of course, what it then means is that you are not just fighting a war within a space above ground, but it also means that Hamas can then find themselves into buildings and move around and corner and potentially create lots of difficult situations in that regard. Of course, technology being used tremendously by the Israeli Defense Forces through robots and other devices, automated vehicles that would actually not necessarily put lives at risk, Israeli lives at risk, that is, to in fact deal with a number of these tunnels. So it certainly is a very difficult humanitarian situation. It is getting worse from all indications. Over 160 children dying on a daily basis in Gaza as we speak. And of course, the irony of it, for those who look back to biblical history and quite often think of David and Goliath, David being a Jewish boy at the time, and Goliath coming from a region around Gaza in Canaan. And of course, it's very much the reverse in this instance. David, this instance, being a mammoth of a giant against the Goliath in this instance. In terms of strength of forces, the estimate is somewhere around 40,000 or so Hamas fighters, and the strength of the IDF somewhere around 500,000. Significant population numbers there. And of course, Israel does have enlistment required and participation in the IDF for pretty much all of the population, barring a few, some individuals, in particular the ultra-Orthodox Jews who would have some levels of exemptions there. But that is the current state of play, and we'll certainly continue to monitor this matter. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we will take in your calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grozile, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Let's go to the phone lines at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon. Okay, looks like we're having some issues. That individual is calling in may have had some issues there, but let's go back to the phone lines to take a call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom.
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you, caller?
Not too bad, huh?
Wonderful.
Now, the HTS had a poll
Okay.
to survey the people who born outside cannot be a prime minister of St. Lucia. What do you think of that?
Sorry, people who are born outside of St. Lucia cannot be...
Outside St. Lucia. They are not St. Lucian, but they come here. Probably they come here as a child, but they can, and they take part in politics, but they can't become a prime minister of St. Lucia because they wasn't born in St. Lucia.
Yeah, I know some people have suggested that, making a constitutional amendment to our constitution, an amendment to our constitution to tackle such a matter. Personally, caller, if we were going to be making constitutional amendments at this point, I would be more interested in other issues in terms of how we can ensure that our democracy can work better, our system of governance can work better. That's my personal opinion. I personally don't subscribe to that idea that if somebody is born outside of St. Lucia for whatever reason, that they certainly would not be able to become a prime minister, especially if it is that they are born of St. Lucian parents or a St. Lucian parent who may have traveled or may have been out for whatever reason, for work, for education, for, whatever the case may be. And it just so happens that that individual is not born in St. Lucia, then I don't think that the person should necessarily be barred from what I think maybe, though, caller, is that we should certainly be a little concerned of ensuring that people who are putting themselves up for election, have actually lived in the country.
Have interests of the St. Lucian people. But what I'll tell you, people forget a lot, and they forget quick in St. Lucia, because John Melvin Campton is not a St. Lucian.
Oh, that's right.
He was born outside St. Lucia. When he came to St. Lucia, he was 13 years old. He went to school in St. Lucia. He went outside to study and come back in St. Lucia. And he's the one who negotiated independence for St. Lucia. St. Lucia does forget quick. And another person that was very deep, I don't know if he became prime minister, because I wasn't in his country, but Mallet is not a St. Lucian. Mallet born in Palama. Mallet come in St. Lucia. At the same time, people like my mother, they're sending them back to St. Lucia. Okay? To school or to whatever they say they send them, they never call them back in Parliament. But John Neville Compton wasn't a St. Lucian, and yet he had St. Lucia at. Yeah, he's the one that stand up in Constitution Park, the statue of John Melvin Compton. So what you say about that?
No, I completely agree with you, caller. And people can end up, for whatever different reasons, to be born in some part of the world. You never know how it ends up. We're such a small island that it is quite likely that you're going to have these types of situations where somebody may end up being born in a neighboring island, St. Vincent, or for instance, my mother was not born in St. Lucia. She happened to be born in Barbados.
Yeah.
But her mother was St. Lucian. You will have, in fact, interesting enough, her father, although he lived in Barbados for most of his life, he happened himself to have been born in Panama. So you get these types of situations, and it's pretty common. It's very, very common, I suspect, in the case of St. Lucia, more common than we even think. And I don't know necessarily to say that, well, if this person in fact has lived in the country, is fully assimilated into the country, and why should that person not have the opportunity to?
Some people, when they ask them, they say, "Oh, those people, they don't know our culture. They don't know our culture, and they don't know this, they don't know that." But I travel. Most of the people, we have almost the same culture. Like Grenada, Trinidad, we have the same culture. We don't have different culture.
Yeah, I mean, again, that I don't know. That approach is not really, I think, really addressing the critical issues. Now, I know that there are some people out there who have been pushing that, and there's a particular individual who they are trying to somehow prevent from being able to maybe get involved in politics. Now, you don't change your constitution for that reason.
Individual, his father and grandfather, people talk about slavery. They come out from that same branch. They come out because his father's mother was a negress.
Yes, she was.
The plantation. So he have that blood in him, no matter how he look. But he have that blood in him, you see. But the only reason why he wasn't born in this country is because I think on the mother side, they are blue blood. And when to give birth, you see, you are a bleeder. And they didn't have the technology yet in St. Lucia. If a blue blood person giving birth, you have a way to stop that blood. So he was born in Martinique.
Well, there you go. But I don't know the specific details, but let's just assume that. But caller, let's look at it this way as well.
Yeah.
The government has indicated, and I think, of course, there have been a number of visits that the Prime Minister has made to the diaspora, whether it's in London, in Canada, in New York, recently. And the government has indicated its intention to, in fact, make it easier for second generation and third generation St. Lucians, in other words, or rather the descendants of St. Lucians who, in fact, were not necessarily born in St. Lucia, but their parents are St. Lucian or their grandparents are St. Lucian, to ensure that they can actually get citizenship easier, right? Now, that is something that a number of countries that have very large diasporas have been engaged in. You can think of Ireland, for instance, as a very good example of that. The population of Ireland itself is like about 5 million or so. But when you look at people of Irish descent outside of Ireland, it's a significant number. Millions and millions, especially in the United States and in Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, so they recognize that these people actually have an affinity to to Ireland, and they would actually welcome these people to potentially return to be citizens if they wanted to make a contribution, because and that is a recognition, of course, that of the reality of the hardship of the past forced millions and millions of people to leave that country and seek their fortune outside. But they still see that, look, these people came from this place and they have a cultural affinity to this place. So it's actually a very open policy to look to getting your diaspora to come out, because in fact, we say we have 180,000 St. Lucians right here. But the reality is
more outside.
They're at least tens of thousands.
England, you take other country, Canada.
Precisely.
You take all the diaspora. We have almost double what you could say in there.
Well, I don't know if it's double, but let's say it's double. And it is a significant resource, and it is a significant opportunity for connections and for growth of the island itself. So I think this move, if this idea, I understand where it's coming from, but I think it's too narrow an argument, and I think in this day and age, I don't really subscribe to that. I don't think we should be subscribing to it. I believe that this is an opportunity to bring in our people and to ensure that they now, you see, that's another issue too, because let's face it, a number of St. Lucians living in St. Lucia will tell you, these people in the diaspora, sometimes they come down and they don't appreciate and assimilate and respect the local culture. And they think that therefore they somehow may be superior or better off, right? Because they may be coming or have lived in a developed country, so to speak, right? But we have to ensure that whatever happens, that there has to be proper assimilation, there has to be proper cultural appreciation by people in the diaspora, as well as we having to appreciate cultures from the outside as well. So I hope that it's an interesting conversation. I don't know what the results of the poll
the other thing
are,
I
but
think they want to copy America, because if you wasn't born in America, you can't become Prime Minister of America.
that's true. But the irony, I think the U.S. is one of the few countries that actually has that, eh? But the other thing too, caller, is that you're finding a lot of St. Lucians are heading to the United States to deliver, to give birth. Because
happening there that once the woman will leave St. Lucia is just a couple weeks before birth, and there's clinic where they go, they pay, and they give birth.
Right.
But
so
they're talking about to change all this.
Right. So now Trump is trying to. He's termed it birth tourism, and he has pledged to end that arrangement, because in fact in the United States, once you're born in the United States, you are considered a U.S. citizen regardless, fully fledged U.S. citizen. The same actually does not apply in a lot of other countries, interestingly enough, where you may be born there, but you still have to live there for a certain period of time, and so, or you have to be born in that country, and you also have to have some direct connection where a parent has to be from that place.
Make it, excuse me.
Yes.
But to make it short, look at Sunak.
Rishi Sunak, right? He's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
United Kingdom, the country that gives us our constitution. He is the Prime Minister.
But I believe Rishi Sunak was actually born, though, eh? Was it?
Born. His father is a millionaire.
Yes, Rishi Sunak was born.
His father rich as well.
But I remember reading about...
And the Chief Minister of Scotland as well.
Oh, okay. I'm not even too sure where she is born. Was she born in a European country?
No, he born in England, I think. But his family, right now, some of his family trapped in that war going on in Israel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, that's an interesting one because, right, as we're speaking about Israel, a number of people who are in Israel, well, let's face it, Israel is a migrant state, you know, very, very many people who are resident there, citizens who, in fact, never born there. They've migrated there.
Americans.
Well,
Because I always tell people, I'm not jumping from one to the other, but I always tell people Israel is an American state. And as soon as the trouble started there, did you see what Biden done? He sent an aircraft carrier with 700 planes down. And he sent another one, the Eisenhower, down with almost the same amount of planes.
yeah, there's one in the Mediterranean and I think one in the Persian Gulf.
Other ship with them. If in case Iran move, they're going to bomb Iran just like they bomb in the Gaza. So any little thing happen in Israel, America is there. At the 7 Days War, where America sent planes, several pilots down to bomb because the Arabs was the other countries on their foot in the desert. But he sent a lot of plane and helicopter to just wipe them off. And that's why Biden stand up. He said, I stand up shoulder to shoulder with Benjamin Netanyahu. I stand up shoulder to shoulder. But that time he was giving Netanyahu license to kill Arabs. And now he going down in the poll. A lot of you never know it's so much Arabs that is in America, and they say they will never vote for him again. So he's trying his best to do something, but he's going to lose, and I want him to lose the election. Okay?
Yeah, it is certainly a very slippery slope that Biden has gone down on this entire matter. Of course, traditionally, a lot of immigrants, are supporting the Democratic Party, and as well, a lot more Jews support the Democratic Party as well.
But the Jews are more
but interestingly,
they are Trump. They are Republicans. A lot of
them are Democrats, but they get a lot of their support from the evangelical Christians who generally will be voting Republicans. So they're on both sides. We'd have a very, very interesting mix of support there, but it certainly is a double-edged sword for the Democrats, as you rightfully are saying, because they're also losing support from other immigrant groups, which they would traditionally have gained support from, and these individuals would they would probably just not go to the polls in another general election. So that is a very difficult situation that they are finding themselves in, definitely. But caller, we're going to have to take
when people say war, I against what those people done, the what you call them, the Hamas done. I against that what they done there. You see, but at the same time, what Israel is doing there, that is mass murder. That I've been in this over 80-something years, but I never see that happen the way Israel doing it there. Bombing the people, tea, breakfast, and dinner is bomb you letting go at them. And then America send a boat with more sophisticated bomb that will go down and it'll open the earth to find the tunnel.
Yeah. Thanks very, very, very much for that contribution, caller. Very much appreciated. But we're going to have to put a pause there because we're due to take in our weather report. Good afternoon.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Styles massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets and more. Plus, contractors and tilers. tailors are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations: Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And National of Coastal 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east-southeast near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour. The weather today partly cloudy to overcast at times with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations, and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Tomorrow, fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few scattered showers. There is an advisory in Hairbridge reads residents in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to exercise caution. Also, small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution due to above normal seas. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy at times with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms, mainly over the central Windward Islands and areas further south. The tropical weather outlook: moisture and instability associated with a weak trough system will continue to cause some cloudy periods with showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And this was the weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Style's massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets, and more. Plus, contractors and tilers are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations: Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message in via WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. And we were just speaking a little bit about the matter of migration and citizenship. And the interesting thing, and of course tying this whole matter in with what we're seeing right now in Israel, is that it's, as far as I know, one of the only states where, based on your religion, you can actually gain citizenship in such a country. And that, of course, is a very interesting distinction, because in some sense, although Israel is a democracy in that they have a parliament, the Knesset, and they've got a Supreme Court and whatnot, it actually allows for people who are Jewish, once they are Jewish, adherents to the Jewish faith, they can in fact gain citizenship. So when you look at their population, you got about 3/4 of the population is Jewish, and then you've got Arabs, non-Jewish Arabs, which are about a fifth of the population, just over 20%, and then you've got some other minorities, another almost 5%, 4 or 5%. And so when you look at that group of the Jewish population, they, from what has been said, a significant number of them are coming from populations outside of that region. And again, there are somewhere, well, there are about 7.5 million Jews. I should say 7.5 million Israelis, citizens, but 1.6, so of that number, 5.7 are Jewish, and 1.6 million of those are in fact born abroad, with the other 4.1 million being born in Israel, but largely of people who are migrants who've come in over the past 75 years or so. And so a significant part of the population, in fact, was born in the former Soviet Union, upwards of about 15%, in fact, born in the Soviet Union, another 15% born in Africa, and then a number of persons of Jewish, who are Jewish, who are also coming from a number of other countries where Jews were forced to flee, or they were kicked out, or whatever the case may be, in Libya, for instance, Egypt, a number of these North African countries, a number of Middle Eastern countries like Yemen and Iran have been, those Jews fled to Israel, particularly during the aftermath of the Arab-Israeli War. And so it has been a place of refuge for a significant number of Jews around the world. Thus far, it's, as I said, 7.5 million is that population, with about 5.7 million Jews living in Israel. But the worldwide population of Jews somewhere around 15 million, with the majority, I believe, actually living in the United States of America. And of course, that is a really important part of their strength and their diaspora, the influence that Jewish population in the United States has been able to gain. A significant number actually went to the United States in the lead up to the, and these are largely Ashkenazi Jews coming out of Europe, out of Eastern Europe, and they went into the United States in the lead up to the World War II and sought refuge in the United States. A lot of them coming with quite a lot of skills, which lent themselves to establish very successful businesses and a very successful economic network, which still remains to this day. And of course, that has quite often been the bane of the Jewish diaspora, that they have been very successful in business, and they were quite often blamed in Europe for lots of the problems that existed, and of course they were always seen to be, for some reason, the enemy of the state in many European countries. And so whether it was in Russia, and in Eastern Europe with the pogroms, and led to a lot of migration out of that region, and then later on, of course, where you saw the rise of National Socialism in Germany, and of course the rise of Hitler and his beginning of what we now know as the Holocaust, which saw the loss of millions of Jews being killed, assassinated, exterminated, and quite often by very harrowing ways. In the beginning, of course, it involved shooting of individuals face to face. And later on, because of the shared difficulty and psychological impact that this had on the individuals who were being called to actually take such actions, they came up with what was known as the final solution. And of course, that all dealt with via a conference in a suburb of Berlin, in Wannsee, in January of 1942 or thereabouts, where the German civil servants came together and members of the SS and the party, the Nazi party, coming together to say how they were going to go about dealing with, quote unquote, effectively the extermination of a people who made such a remarkable contribution to European civilization and European development. But that was then the result of that, the creation of concentration camps. And of course, many of those concentration camps were not even in Germany itself, but in the what were then the Eastern territories claimed under the invading Nazi forces, and in particular in Poland. And so millions of people losing their lives in through gas chambers, and of course this is something that is still very much part of the knowledge of every Jew, and the hardship that they have gone through as a people in terms of their treatment by Europe, their treatment by, and of course now, the challenge is their treatment by many Arab countries as well. So the power of that diaspora is significant through their economic strength. They certainly have a very significant and strong lobby, a very well-oiled machinery in terms of lobbying with their congressmen and ensuring that the U.S. government continues to provide support for the state of Israel. And that support has, over the years, pretty much been fixed somewhere around $4 billion US annually being provided to Israel to ensure that that state can continue to exist. Big question remains, really and truly, is that if there was not that U.S. support, there perhaps could not really continue to exist this state. And Israel itself, of course, has been trying to make some level of amends with its neighbors, and we've been seeing some warming of relations with countries like Saudi Arabia, for instance. And that, of course, has been in an effort to see how they can create a more sustainable diplomatic environment around Israel. And so, of course, those moves are certainly going to be put under some level of peril and strain at this point, as we're seeing the kind of approach that we are witnessing right now by the Netanyahu unity government, which is pushing ahead with its ground operations in Gaza. Still no idea as to what is the game plan, the end of game plan, so to speak. Yes, they can get in and surround Gaza City. Yes, they could perhaps try to engage then in that urban warfare and trying to deal with that support. But it is certainly going to be a very long run, a long-standing approach at this point, because it's going to take lots of resources to be able to actually hold a space which is so heavily populated still, even though we've seen a significant number of people who have evacuated. There's still hundreds of thousands of people very much in situ in Gaza today as we speak. And it'll be and this is always a challenge. How can you tell the difference between friend and foe? How can you tell the difference between a Hamas fighter who's wearing the very same clothes as an ordinary baker or technician or school teacher. And that is really the difficulty in any kind of environment like that. We've seen those types of operations being very, very, very challenging. And of course, we've also seen the approach that has been taken is causing a significant loss of life. And that, I think, that number is going to continue to rise, especially when you now get into the situation of street, building to building combat and ground infantry combat at that point. So it is going to be a very, very difficult days ahead, even with the technology available, even though the numbers seem to be so highly stacked in the favor of Israel. The challenge that you face is this matter potentially gaining some level of escalation in other fronts. Now, of course, there has been on the northern front of Israel, to the north of Israel, we have Lebanon. And as we mentioned, Lebanon has traditionally been a country also with a significant amount of difficulties over the years, not least because of its similar situation where it is split by way of religion. Traditionally a majority Christian country. It's as a result of population shifts over the years. It is now predominantly Muslim, with about 45% Christian. And in the south of Lebanon in particular, and even amongst the Muslims, we should also mention, they're also split as well, with different sects being present as well in Lebanon, both Sunni and Shia Muslims existing in Lebanon. And of course, you also now have in the mix the Lebanese Shia Hezbollah, which is originally began as a military force back during the 1982 Lebanon War, but they themselves have also segued into the realm of politics, and so they are not just a military force. Again, they also have political clout within the Lebanese government, and they have been not significant. I mean, I think they hold about maybe about 15 seats in the parliament there, and they certainly have made certain statements of late that they are looking at the matter, and they believe that there is in fact already a war afoot. But as to whether in fact they will get more involved is, for some people, they believe that it is not going to be the case, because again, too, because they actually are in a very comfortable position as part of the government, and they are benefiting from what is going on within Lebanon, they may want not to risk losing that influence over pulling in the country into a war. And so it will certainly be very interesting to see if in fact this matter expands. Of course, they are most influential in the border region, in the south of Lebanon, the region that borders Israel. And so they have had their fair share of fighting over the years as well. And so, of course, Israel will also be looking at its northern border, ensuring that, that threats are not coming from there as well. And, of course, as mentioned by the caller earlier on, the United States is, in fact, shifting a considerable amount of its assets into the Middle Eastern region on the western side, on the Mediterranean Sea, as well as in the Gulf, in closer to the former Persia, that of Iran. And so it'll be interesting to see how it will continue to pan out. And we certainly do need to be ever watching this matter, because we are already seeing the world facing difficulties. We're seeing the world with the issues in Ukraine and Russia, and how that has had knock-on effects in terms of food and inflation around the world. It has had knock-on effects in places like India, where they are now looking at their own food security. Everybody's talking about food security, as food is also, of course, being impacted by the issues of climate change and adverse weather conditions. We are continuing to see what is panning out in Africa, and a tussle for influence in Africa as well over the matter of resources and the interplay between countries, developed countries, seeking out and extracting resources out of Africa. And that continues to be a matter that can have implications for us right here and for the entire world, if in fact you're seeing supply chain disruptions coming out of Africa. And of course, we're just in our neck of the woods. Again, the issue of climate change, the issue of drought impacting infrastructure like the Panama Canal. And they, in fact, having to cut back on the capacity of the number of ships that can actually pass through the canal, which of course would mean significant delays in shipping. And that is going to be knocked on. That is going to be felt by the consumer when they are actually going to the supermarket and trying to purchase goods there. So certainly it is a lot to look at and a lot to take in and a lot to be aware of. And the implications are very real, whether it may be our oil, whether it may be food. We are all largely dependent on those things coming from the outside and from very far away too. And so that is unfortunately the plight that the world finds itself in at this time. But that's all the time we have today here at the Lunchroom. We'll be back again tomorrow for another program of the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. I hope that we can have you to join in. In fact, we're supposed to be having a guest coming in, and the matter to be discussed is that of social safety nets and safety nets for vulnerable populations. Of course, you would have heard that the government announced not too long ago a $1,500 income support program for vulnerable persons. Well, that and a lot more is going to be discussed tomorrow with my very special guest, who is the coordinator of that program, Miss Tricia Leo. So I hope you can join us for that on the Lunchroom tomorrow. Take care.